That basically is just a way to remind the different officers and helmsmen when they trade watches where we were going just now. Just a way to exchange communication. But in relation to all the GPSs and weather stations we have now, I can just really appreciate it. I'm glad it's still there. So we have the course blocks right underneath the GPS system, which of course has its own flaws as well. So these two radars that are basically analogs to each other, and they read the surface of the ocean, and they read it fairly well, so things like icebergs of significant size and shape would come up on them. But one thing that they don't read is underwater at all. So you can imagine a situation in which there's a rough and stormy sea and lots of big waves, and the surface of the water is no longer clearly mappable exactly because it's always sort of changing. And so it's those times that you'll see the ship, even with both radars on, slowing way down and having to depend on basically the eyes to make sure that we're not going to run into anything huge. And so red is on the port side and green is on the starboard side at all times. And that just communicates with other vessels out there what you are and which way you're going. They can say, oh, it's the starboard side of the ship, so obviously it's major marine radio. One's over here, one's over there, monitoring, sort of universally monitoring 16, which is just the channel that is generally communicated on in the marine world. And the hook is still in, and there's something still coming at you that you can't avoid. That's when you press the really bad red buttons, which are the anchor release starboard main engines. We've got about 2,700 horsepower per engine. 520 RPMs, if that means much to you. The interesting thing to me about them is that it's they call it variable pitch propeller. So once it's on, it's always on at the same speed, same rate, same RPM, same horsepower. I've been told that you could have basically operated this ship with a joystick. Right now, if we wanted to do a sideways maneuver, they would turn on the stern thruster and the bow thruster and navigate them manually in some particular way that would make us go sideways and perhaps forward. The main steering console here, the helm, main helm of the ship, and very, very useful when we're coming into port or just when we're maneuvering around ice. And this is the Aquamaster, which we saw downstairs, that big sheath that lowers down out of the bottom of the stern there. Up here we have the day shapes, a lot of country flags, of course, where you're country where you're from, I think is in the stern, is that right? The country where you're in right now is in the bow, or the other way around, I can't quite remember. But we also have, aside from country flags here, are flags of communication, basic symbol. Oh yeah, a white flag with a blue plus sign in it means stop carrying out your intentions and wait for my signals. Sounds like a date, right? Which is the running mileage of what we've done since our last fill up of fuel. So it's not just this trip, but it's been going for quite some time now. Of course, some more gyroscopic compass here, our present speed, lats and longs from a number of different directions. You gotta have multiple instruments all corroborating the same pieces of information. You've probably seen our little weather stations here that have a number of different numbers jumping up. Some of the most important for us, of course, are the wind speed and the wind direction, because we're always trying to find a place to get out of the wind, particularly as kayakers. We're always trying to find a place to get out of the wind, so we're looking at where that arrow is pointing from and what the speed is. And this is, of course, in meters per second, so you multiply that by about 1.8 and you have nautical miles an hour. So if it's blowing about 12 meters a second, you might have like a 22 knot wind, which is pretty significant. And that's when it's dark enough that you can see the stars you need for the navigation. And so having those times could be key if you're at sea and need to use those stars for navigation and stuff like that. But for us, it's more just interesting to know. Excellent. Let's go outside. We'll just go upstairs onto the top deck for 1 second.